No one recognized him. Not the prison guards, not the inmates, not even the warden. When Ibrahim Traoré, leader of Burkina Faso's transitional government, disguised himself as an ordinary convict and stepped through the rusting gates of Koa prison, he had no idea the horrors he would witness inside would leave scars on his soul. 6 days later, the entire prison system would be shaken to its foundation. To the east of Ouagadougou, hidden behind towering gray walls topped with barbed wire, stood the ominous fortress known as Koa Prison, the most feared detention center in the entire country. Behind those concrete barriers, a different world thrived, one without law, without compassion, without even a whisper of hope. It was on a still, early Sunday morning when the enormous iron gates creaked open once again. A new prisoner had arrived. There was nothing outwardly strange about his file. The name read Musa Dio, 38 years old, arrested for attempting a petty robbery. It all seemed routine, but what the prison documents didn't reveal was the truth. The man in handcuffs was Ibrahim Traoré, the most powerful man in the nation. "Move! Keep walking!" barked the gate officer, his eyes avoiding the prisoner entirely. Traoré offered no resistance. His face bore several days' worth of unshaved stubble. His hair was tangled, and his clothes, a faded shirt and ripped trousers, blended in with the misery around him. There was nothing in his posture, expression, or speech that hinted at his true identity. For months, official reports from the prison echoed the same lines. All is well, no issues, conditions are improving. But the letters that began showing up anonymously on Traoré's desk whispered a far more chilling truth. Torture, starvation, disappearances, deaths cloaked in silence. He needed to know what was real. And there was only one way to do that: step inside the darkness himself. His first few hours behind bars offered no special treatment. A dirty, threadbare prison uniform, an unwashed cell, the constant echo of screaming guards. He was assigned to Block C7, the most feared unit in the prison. He took his place on the lower bunk. The sheets were crusted with filth. The blanket was so thin it could barely be called fabric, and the pillow felt like a slab of rock. Around him, hardened eyes studied his every move. Newcomers were always seen as threats. "Hey, fresh meat!" grunted a heavy-set man from across the cell, his stare weighing on Traoré. "What landed you here?" "Attempted robbery," Traoré replied softly, keeping his gaze steady. "Unsuccessful," he added with a faint smile. "Didn't even have a weapon." "Bad luck, huh?" the big man said with a smirk. His name was Bari. He wasn't just an inmate. He ruled over C7 like a shadow king. In this world, Barry decided who breathed and who didn't. "What about you?" Traoré asked, his tone genuinely curious. Barry laughed, a deep, bitter sound. "I'm not your average thief. Been in here 15 years. Murder, theft, all of it. But my real crime? Getting caught." "What's life like here?" Traoré asked, leaning in slightly. Bari's face darkened. "Life," he repeated hollowly. "There is no life here. Only waiting. We're just waiting to die." That night, as the prison settled into darkness, a low groan broke the silence. Fragile, agonized. It came from the far corner of the cell. Traoré leaned closer. A young man lay there, skin hanging from bones, eyes burning with fever. "What happened to him?" Traoré whispered to a nearby inmate. "Gaspar," the old man replied, his voice heavy with sorrow. "The guards beat him 2 weeks ago, cracked his ribs. No one treated him. Now it's infection, eating him alive from the inside." "Isn't there a doctor?" Traoré asked, his voice tight. A bitter laugh swept the cell. "Doctor?" the old man scoffed. "There's no doctor here. You live or you die. The guards don't care either way." By morning, the silence turned deadly. Before the cell doors opened, guards stormed in. They headed straight for Gaspar's bunk. The boy was no longer breathing. "Another one gone," muttered head guard Bolat, without a shred of emotion. "Get rid of him." Two guards dragged the lifeless body like it was nothing more than trash. A fury flared inside Traoré's chest, but his expression didn't change. He was a prisoner now, and prisoners who showed rage were taught cruel lessons. Bolat's gaze scanned the room and landed on him. "You," he growled. "New guy. Kitchen duty." The prison kitchen was a cavern of misery. Diamond soys filthy, infested. The food was barely fit for animals. Rusted pots, rotten produce, prisoners with hollow eyes preparing slop. Traoré was assigned to chop vegetables, most of them already decomposing. "These are spoiled," he said under his breath to an older man beside him. "How are we supposed to cook with this?" The man laughed dryly. "These aren't for us, my friend. Look over there." Traoré turned. Another prisoner was cooking with clean ingredients in him. A separate pot. "What's he making?" "The guards' food," the man replied. "They eat meat. We eat bones. They get bread. We get mold. That's the order of things here." That night, back in the cell, Bari was waiting. "Come here," he said. "I've got things to show you." In a whisper, he gestured down the corridor. "See the end? There's a room there, a place of nightmares. Prisoners who go in either never come back, or they come back broken." Traoré absorbed every word. "There's a hidden economy here," Bari continued. "Bribes for medicine, bribes for food, bribes just to stay alive. No money, no family. Then may God have mercy on you." "How long has this been going on?" "Always," Bari murmured. "But since Warden Kabore took over, it's become inhuman." Day 3 brought another death, but this time, the boy hadn't just been sick. He had been taken into the room Bari mentioned and came back cold. "What happened?" Traoré asked. "Torture," Bari whispered. "His family couldn't pay. That room, they use electric shocks, beatings, worse." The screams Traoré had heard at night suddenly made sense. "Why?" he asked. "Why such cruelty?" "Money," Bari replied flatly. "The prison gets government funds per inmate. On paper, we're treated well. In reality, they pocket the money and feed us lies." By the 4th day, Traoré's own nightmare began. 2 guards seized him. He was dragged, beaten, and thrown into the dreaded room. "The warden wants a word," one hissed. "Better have a story he likes." The room was even worse than he'd imagined. Blood dried into the walls. Devices meant to inflict agony hung from hooks. And at the center, an iron chair built for torture. Then Warden Kabore entered. A massive man, clean uniform, cold eyes. He held Traoré's forged file. "Musa Dio, or whoever you really are," he sneered. "We heard you've been asking questions, talking too much to Bari." "I'm just a prisoner," Traoré said calmly, "trying to survive." "Survive?" Kabore chuckled darkly. "Survival here costs money. You got any family, friends, anyone who can pay to keep you breathing?" Traoré said nothing, but inside he knew. His disguise was starting to crack, and soon so would everything else. Traoré didn't speak. He didn't need to. Bakari had already said it plainly. This was not a prison. It was a machine, a system built to bleed the powerless dry, a racket, a nightmare disguised as justice. "Let me break it down for you," Warden Kabore said coldly. "In here, you either pay or you suffer. That's how it works." "How much?" Traoré asked, his voice flat. Kabor's lips curled. "Someone like you. 500,000 CFA. It was more than what most Burkina would earn in a year. And if I don't pay?" The warden didn't answer with words. He simply pointed at the electric shock devices mounted on the wall. The implication was brutal and clear. Then Traoré's voice shifted. Calm, steady. "Warden," he said, "I think I have a proposal." Cabaret raised an eyebrow, mildly amused. Go on. What are you, some forgotten prince? A hidden billionaire? Traoré reached into his pocket and slowly pulled out a small, ordinary-looking object, a plastic transmitter, a device given to him by the Secret Service. With a simple push of a button, he activated it. What are you doing? Kabor asked, eyes narrowing. I'm calling for help, Traoré answered, meeting his gaze. And believe me, they're closer than you think. Kabor's smirk twisted into panic. What is this nonsense? Guards! Take that thing away! The door burst open, but it wasn't his guards who stormed in. Fully armed, masked, and moving with chilling precision, special forces swept into the room. These were Traoré's loyal operatives. Kabor stumbled backward, eyes wide. Who are these men? What's happening? Traoré rose to his feet, his body straightened, his expression sharpened. The quiet prisoner was gone. What stood before Kabor was a leader in full command. I am Ibrahim Traoré, he said, voice low and unwavering, and you are under arrest. Kabor's face collapsed into horror. His knees wobbled. He almost collapsed. This can't be, he gasped. I've heard the whispers, Traoré continued, stepping forward. Torture, extortion, deaths swept under the rug. And now, I've witnessed them firsthand. As masked guards restrained Kabore, the man no longer fought. He was limp, shaken, silent. But we were just following orders, he stammered. The ministry, I am the ministry now, Traoré cut him off, and my only order is justice, dignity for every Burkinabe. Outside, the thrum of helicopters echoed through the air. The prison was surrounded. There was no escape. I made you minister of prisons, Traoré said coldly. But the hell you created, that ends today. You'll be the first prisoner in the system you helped build. The corridors erupted in chaos. Some guards dropped their weapons and surrendered without a fight. Others ran. None succeeded. When the gates to cell block C7 creaked open, the prisoners looked up in disbelief. Standing in the doorway, flanked by elite soldiers, was Traoré. But he was transformed. He walked with authority now, no longer bowed. His voice rang with purpose. Bakari, he said gently. His old cellmate could barely speak. You're... Yes, Traoré nodded. And everything you told me, every scar, every scream, it all matters. And now, it's time. Time for justice. Traoré examined the entire prison. What he saw would haunt any human soul. Starvation, unspeakable torture, men barely clinging to life. He documented every face, every room, every atrocity. On Saturday, he commanded, everyone, prisoners, guards, administrators, will gather in the yard. A Secret Service agent approached, concerned. Sir, will there be executions? Traoré shook his head. Number, there will be justice, because justice is stronger than vengeance. Saturday arrived with a golden morning sun casting its light across the grim prison yard. On one side, the broken, filthy, trembling prisoners. On the other, the feared guards, heads lowered in shame. Traoré stood at the center. No armor, no crown, just simple clothes and steady eyes. Beside him stood ministers and officials. Today, he began, voice ringing clear across the silence. Burkina Faso must choose. Will we side with the crushed or the crushing? Are we innocent if we only watch evil and say nothing? No one dared answer. I am closing Kotoka prison, he declared. This fortress of cruelty will be torn down. In its place will rise a center of healing, a sanctuary of education, medical care, and rehabilitation. He turned to the guards. Kabor and his collaborators will be tried. And I promise you, when I say justice, I mean true justice. One guard burst into tears. Another fell to his knees. All prisoners will receive medical checkups, food, human dignity, their cases will be reviewed. And if they are innocent, they will go home. Bakari stood stunned. Is this real? It is, Traoré answered gently. Because Burkina Faso will no longer bury the truth. We will face it together. Weeks later, the transformation was complete. Kotoka prison was no more. Its razor wire and steel bars had been replaced by open walkways and gardens. The torture chamber, now a sunlit library. The filthy kitchen, now a clean soup kitchen serving warm meals. Education halls stood where once there were screams. In the yard stood Bakari, wearing a white coat, now a health officer. President Traoré is coming, he said, eyes shining. We must thank him. Traoré arrived without ceremony, in the same humble clothes he wore when he first entered as a prisoner. But his presence filled the air. He was a man who rose not above, but from the people, and never left them behind. Our prison system, he told the crowd, is the mirror of our nation, and today we finally like what we see. He walked among them, shaking hands. One man broke into tears. It was Gaspar, once tortured nearly to death. You saved me, he whispered. No, Gaspar, Traoré said softly. We saved each other. A nation is only as strong as its most wounded soul. Bakari came forward. Others joined him. No one applauded. Instead, they embraced him. People don't clap for their brother, Bakari said, recalling an old proverb. They embrace him. And so, in what had once been Burkina Faso's most feared prison, the embrace began. A leader embracing his people, a people embracing their future. The Kotoka incident marked the dawn of a new era in Burkina Faso. Kabore and his men were tried and punished. But more importantly, the nation itself had changed. Traoré's 6 days in hell lit a fire in every heart. No Burkinabe, he would later say, not even those behind bars will ever be forgotten. Because real power is not ruling over the weak, real leadership is feeling their pain, and real freedom comes only through justice.